Hello and welcome back to Conversations with Claire. Today, my guest is sort of a rookie on podcasts, a little. She just did one last time we spoke when I asked her to come on. She was like, actually, I haven't done any. And she's done one since, so she's not a total noob, but either way. So this is Chloe McNally.
Hi.
She is a BJJ black belt. She teaches the children's program as well as one-to-ones, women's program, and then obviously mixed as well. Predominantly gi.
Mostly gi, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Gracie Humaita.
Mm-hmm. Gracie Humaita.
And then
Renzo Gracie Austin.
Yes. So that is... that's kind of the context for, we've had some conversation in person around Jiu Jitsu stuff because I'm fascinated with y'all, like obsessed. And, and I always like to start with the how we met. And I love that for you came in while I was taking the protector course. And so we like sort of met in passing, but not really like saw one another. But the first time that we met was not even long ago, but I'm just going to give them context. And so we were at Los Campeones, and that's where you do your resistance training workouts. And the thing that I immediately adored about you is I know that you're like a high level grappler, right? Like that's the little bit of context I have based on what Jimmy tells me, and, you know, knowing that you teach where you teach and you sub the classes that you sub for the people, you know, like the things that I have awareness around. And so to me, you're like high level, right? Because you literally are. But you were so nice to me. Like you were immediately just like genuinely, like I remember you're like warming up or whatever you were doing, and you were so inquisitive about me and happy to like converse and wanted to carry on further. And so it made me feel immediately like super welcome in your space. Mm-hmm. And so I don't know, who knows what your like experience there was, but I really appreciated that from you. And then the little bit of further conversation we've had about like your perspective on, you know, being a light and so on, which we'll probably get into more. I'm like, oh, that makes sense, because that's exactly what you did with me. So anyway, I just like to start with the how we met.
I love that. Thank you for reflecting that back, because that I remember being super drenched and disgusting. Like I think I had
that day.
Yeah, I think I had just done like a crazy, disgusting endurance workout or something. I don't know. My sessions are kind of long because I'm getting ready for competition. Mm-hmm. But I saw you guys, I saw Jimmy, and I had met Jimmy a couple times through the Renzo guys and my bosses, and I knew who he was. And then I saw you, and I remembered I'd met you before, and I was like, oh my God, I didn't know. Like and sometimes when I see people and I just light up and I want to start talking. Uh-huh. So it wasn't just, I think it was your energy activated something in me, and I just felt called to say like hi and introduce myself. Yeah. Sometimes it doesn't always land, but you were receptive to it, so I appreciate that.
I refer to my like social behavior as like almost like a labradoodle.
Yes.
Like not just like golden retriever, like in a competitive setting with women in the gym, because of course that's like a world that we live in. And although mine's more like CrossFit background and whatever, still I always am like, I'm the golden retriever. You know what I mean? Like I want you to know that I'm like really safe. But I think it's more of like a labradoodle because I'm really excited too.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm the same. I've gotten poodle. People have said I'm a poodle. But I think I'm just really tall and long, but I have the golden retriever in me too. Mm-hmm. It doesn't come out for everyone, but it can come out, and when it does, it's like full on. But I usually have to feel not like almost invited into that. Mm-hmm. And for some reason, the energy where it was, I just was like, oh my God. And I just wanted to like wag my tail and come like hang out with you.
Okay, wait, then what would people describe you as on the mats? Like when you're actually competing, and move just a little bit. You're totally okay. I just want to make sure it doesn't. Yeah, you're okay. Good. Okay. So what if we were to use a dog or maybe just an animal?
Okay.
Like what would you describe your energy as whenever you're actually competing?
When I'm competing, so I am very serious when I compete. Like I'm very goofy and I love to have fun when I'm training, but I can also be really intense.
Yeah.
I train with a lot of men, so I think they would say that I'm pretty intense.
Yeah.
But not intense in the way that I'm like just wanting to like kill, go.
Yeah.
I like to flow. I like to move. I like exciting exchanges where we're kind of moving all around. Only you have your instincts to call upon. You can't really think. I like scrambles. So as far as a dog, I'm not even like, maybe a German Shepherd. Like, I like to work. I like working. I have a lot of energy. I can be kind of serious, but there's also that goofy side that's reserved for a select few that I feel comfortable with. But I think on the outside, if you were to look at me, I would just look like a working dog, probably.
That's really cool. Jimmy has, even within the past like 48 hours, commented, he's like something to the extent of like, I like getting to see your soft side, whatever. And I'm like, what? And he's like, well, yeah, you in social settings present as very, very, I don't know. I don't want to butcher the words he's saying, but either way, like very, not serious, but, I don't know.
Professional, maybe?
Yeah, I mean that, and then also just not like bad dominant, but dominant. You know what I mean? Like commanding in a way almost. Yeah. And that's also like when you're in a coaching role, like you kind of need to do that. If you're going to run a podcast, like to some extent, like you kind of need to like put up the barriers ish, you know?
Yeah,
so it's like, I put myself in settings all the time where that's appropriate.
Yeah.
And so whenever those settings are no longer appropriate, he's like, it's nice to see the soft side. And I'm like, I don't even know what that means, but okay. I'm glad it's there. I guess they would say maybe the feminine energy when it's allowed to like come out.
Yeah. And I think that's Jimmy, that's such a lovely way of like a great example, because he's someone that probably provides the safety and the protection that you need to allow that side to come out.
Totally.
Because it's not the like that feminine quality, that like watery, powerful quality, energetically powerful, that can't always come out when you don't feel safe enough to let that out, because there is a lot of inherent vulnerability there, I think. And that's really lovely that you guys have that relationship where you feel safe to let that out, and then that helps him too, whether or not he's aware of it. And him saying it's beautiful, I think, is showing that it is helping him a lot.
Yeah. Oh gosh, now I want to like tell you some other stories that we can save, but so I do want to gain some context, because this is stuff that I don't know. And so like as you speak, and this is something the last time that we spoke that was really obvious to me, there's a wisdom that you carry. Okay. So you could be 20, you could be like, I have no idea how old you are.
Okay.
And so I'm excited because I want to know more. How did we get here? Right.
Okay.
So like, I do want to know, let's take it back. Where did you grow up? What was that like? How old are you? All of that stuff. So we can take some time. Tell me about you.
So I grew up in California, in the Bay Area. I was totally an outdoorsy person, loved animals, have always loved animals, always wanted to work with animals, was a horse girl, like through and through. I don't know, whatever that means to you. Or
did you grow up on a ranch?
No, but I grew up close to one.
Okay.
And I had always begged my parents to let me be involved with horses. I really wanted to ride horses and experience them. I just always was really drawn to them.
Yeah.
And so I got in, my parents finally obliged when I was like 8 or 7. And I just fell in love, was all in, and it was very expensive. So part of the way that we were able to make it work for my family was that I just worked as a ranch hand, and I loved it. So like from 9 to like 18, I was all in with horses. I was really competitive. I did the Junior Olympics with it, kind of tried to go all the way. My dream was to do the Olympics with horses. And I worked. I went to I even switched schools in high school to a boarding school that was close to a elite facility, just so that I could compete more often and just work. I went before school, during my lunch break, after school, as a ranch hand, and then exercising a bunch of different horses, and then getting training with my horse.
Okay, so what were you doing with the horses? Like, what was the
modality?
Yeah.
I did a bunch of different types of riding. I did Western, I did English, like hunter jumpers, dressage. My main focus was 3-day eventing.
3-day eventing?
3-day eventing.
Okay.
So it's like it's basically like a triathlon with your horse, in the sense that there's 3 different days.
Yep.
And each day is a different modality. So day 1 is dressage. and you're doing like, I don't know if you've ever seen like the Snoop Dogg videos of him commenting on the last Olympics. The horses are dancing. It's hilarious. Like definitely check out that video.
Watching. Okay.
Yeah, the horses are basically just going through a series of movements and are scored based on their movements, based on the rider, his ability to connect with the horse and control it. And then the second day is cross country, where you're jumping, kind of like steeplechasing, where you're jumping over logs, through water, up and down hills. Like, it's kind of insane. It's actually crazy looking back at it. Very dangerous. And then the last day is...
Go ahead.
The last day is show jumping. So it's like jumpers, where you're just going over normal traditional fences. And so that was my life pretty much from before I hit, I guess, double digits, like from 9 until 18.
Okay.
And then I had a really scary accident with my horse, and my horse almost died. And that kind of turned me off from that. And I then moved to New York and left the horses behind and closed that chapter.
At age 18?
At age 18.
Okay.
And haven't really been on a horse since. I kind of have a different perspective on horses and riding, and I really prefer just to be on the ground with horses and just love them from that perspective, and have them as like friends as opposed to like me riding the horse.
I couldn't have made any of this up if I tried. This is so uncommon, even to have access to it, to pursue it. Your family moved in order to get you closer to, is that right?
I moved. So I
Okay.
went to like a normal high school, and then I found a boarding school that was right by the facility that I wanted to train at. And I got a scholarship, was able to go there, and then had worked out a deal where I would be working my board and training off, because it's super expensive for anyone who doesn't know. It's crazy. Horses cost so much money, and then it's as much as rent to keep them fed and homed and trained and all of that stuff too.
So all of these different, this triathlon, this 3-day event is with the same horse.
The same horse.
So the same horse is doing all the work. So like you're
the horse
spending...
is literally doing all the work. Okay. And that's kind of like after the accident, I just had a shift in perspective and was like, oh my God, like I don't want to participate in this anymore. My horse is amazing. Like literally saved my life on so many occasions, like physically, but also mentally, emotionally, spiritually, like such a powerful bond that I had and relationship with that horse that I just was like, I want it to just be happy and not force it to do anything, because it's a lot of work, and the horses get injured very often, and I want them to be sovereign and happy too, like just whatever they want to do.
Did you feel like in hindsight, do you feel like your horse enjoyed the work?
I think my horse loved me, and so that was horses love to be they're huge, powerful animals, and like very playful too. So sometimes they'll like want to gallop around and like we do, like jump in the air and just be nuts. Yeah. But I think I just felt like it was really coercive, and it could have just been the where I was at and the training style and the trainer I had too. It was really militant, and that affected my psyche surely as like an adult. Looking back, I can pinpoint certain experiences that I had as a teenager that were really harmful, I think, from a coaching dynamic, but then also it was harmful to the horse. And I saw horses at that facility too, because I was the only kid there on that team that were not treated very well. And so I think that like the accident was almost in a way, it allowed me to have a new direction and like kind of bow out of that world. And it allowed my horse to have a much better quality of life too, I think.
Okay. So my curiosity with this, because this is just so far outside of the realm of, like, I've never had a length conversation with someone who's had this kind of an experience. I've never even heard of 3-day. I did grow up in Oklahoma, and quarter horse racing is very popular there. So I've been to those, but like that's about as far as it goes for me. So what was it like for you growing up as far as social life goes? Like, considering that there's no way, if for some reason my dad was a dog trainer in the military, and he will talk about the length of time that he would need to spend with this dog every single day. So I can only imagine what that's like for you. So what did that do to your social life?
That's a great question. I think I had like a pretty normal social life prior to boarding school. I mean, I definitely had different commitments than, some of my other friends and even my family. Like when they would want to go on vacation, I would stay back and I would stay home to just get ready for, because I was competing every week, like almost every other weekend. And at high levels, I had a lot of goals. So I had to work, like I had to work off the board and everything. So I, as a young kid, had to kind of stay back. And I chose that. Like I wanted to be back with my horse. I had a lot of goals that I was striving towards. So I had no issue with that. I felt no problem with that. I didn't mind like not having missing birthday parties or like trips and stuff, because I would be, you know, I was so focused on me and what I wanted to achieve and the training process. Like I loved, and like even that translates today, even now with jiu-jitsu, like I love attaching myself to the pursuit of something and just going all in. So that never bothered me. And then when I moved to the boarding school, I knew nobody, had no friends. My horse was my friend, like a true horse girl would say. And I had no, like, I was a little bit lonely, but I didn't mind because, again, I was so busy. I was riding like 8 horses a day because I was exercising the other horses as well as part of my my trade with the barn manager. So it didn't really bother me. And you have such a strong connection to your horse. Like my horse he knew my walk, like he could hear it. And then he would start like going crazy and like neighing and like kicking the door, like excited to see me. Just they're big dogs essentially. And like, you know, get super pumped to see me. And we would just, I don't know, we had like a really strong bond. So to me, that was really special and beautiful. And I still cherish that to this day. That relationship that I had, because it was such a, like, I think all animals are really important teachers because they teach you unconditional love, and it doesn't matter what you do to them, they'll still love you. And I think that's like, it always makes me want to cry, but it's like such a beautiful thing. And he was one of my greatest teachers, as have been all of my animals that have been in my life.
So he taught you a lot about unconditional love. What else do you feel like are standouts that you were able to learn from him?
I think from my experience with horses, just the unconditional love piece is really big and strong, but just connecting to another being that kind of, they're in your care. They're really vulnerable. Most animals are, you know, especially if you call it your pet, like they're at your, like whatever you want to do. I mean, cats, I think, have more autonomy sometimes than dogs, but ultimately at the end of the day, like they're under your stewardship and guidance and care. And so there's a lot of power in that. And I think it can be really abused too. So it really taught me a lot about just, I guess, caring for another person, but it humbled me a lot too, because I realized, wow, I have a lot of responsibility to care for this animal and give it my best, which is why I decided to like leave horses and horseback riding and that barn specifically, because they weren't treating the horses the way they should be treated, like respectfully and with dignity. And there was a lot of coercion, a lot of abuse, a lot of forcing of things. And that really broke my heart. And I just didn't want to have any part of that anymore, because the horses are such beautiful creatures, like any animal. And when like they helped, like he really saved my life and like helped me mentally and emotionally. And in our accident, he did save my life. Like I could have gone flying and like we were in the woods, like far away from everyone, but he was the one who put himself in danger and ended up getting really seriously injured. So that was another thing.
Oh my gosh.
Part of the experience.
Do you see yourself down the road, like being somebody who does have, like, is that a goal of yours, is to own horses?
Maybe. I haven't.
Don't know yet.
I'm not sure. I think definitely want to be giving back in some way to animals. I don't know if it's like donating time or resources to like an animal sanctuary, but definitely I can say now without a doubt that animals have been such an important part of my journey and have taught me so much about just being a good human, but also just like taught me how to love myself because of their love reflected back to me. And honestly, like brought me back to a really powerful, important relationship to God, because how can you not believe in God when you have these divine creatures showing you all this love? Like that to me was probably the most profound thing that animals have done for me.
This is so interesting because it is so foreign to me. You know, selfishness is here lately. I've been really on a kick with this whole like self-pity is a form of selfishness, right? Because I think in like our world today, it's really easy to get down on ourselves for a variety of different reasons and to feel lesser than, and between, you know, online ability to compare constantly to these perceptions that are not reality, and all the stuff that comes with being a human today. And the loneliness, the time that we have the capacity to spend alone because we have access to such resources that we don't have to like spend, you know, I live here, right, by myself, and I could just hide away anytime, and all those different things. It's been a cool thing for me to reframe and notice, like, if you're feeling self-pity, that is a form of selfishness, and that is not something I desire doing. And even, you know, I remember when I came into recovery, because alcoholism is a part of my journey, and like identifying all of the self-seeking behaviors, and how like so often this like desire to be fun and to have fun, you know, like I'll do anything to just like, let's just have fun. And I need you to love me. Like ultimately it was so that I could feel okay, you know, all like stemming back to self. And so it's just a totally different experience for me of like now getting to gain the understanding and come to a place of having a spiritual life and recognizing that like those things were really not of service to me or anyone that I love, or like it was so to really do the work to not hang out there anymore. So the idea that like you from an entirely different experience like came to the conclusion through your relationships with the animals and stuff that like, you know, it didn't get like you had to be selfless.
Yeah. I think that's like you're forced to, you can't be, because I think when you were describing this, you know, self-pity, because I've been there, who hasn't, like we all get in those cycles. It's just that type of energetic, like the thoughts that carry that energy tether you to like such a low frequency that it can be really hard to disentangle yourself from that. So it's amazing that you were able to kind of lead yourself out of that lower level place, that low level place. But the animals for me, for sure, like you can't be wallowing in self-pity, laying on the floor when you need to feed your cat, or like you need to walk your dog, or your horse needs to be exercised, whatever it is. And that they've been such great guideposts for me. Even like as a kid, when I was feeling really low or alone or really abandoned, like my dogs would like come up and just like put their head on my knee, and I'd be like, oh my God, like I am not alone. I'm loved. That's also God working through these animals. Like I'm never alone. And that for me was a huge insight last year when I moved here, and I had like a really crazy injury where I was like, so I couldn't move my hand. I couldn't do what I've been doing for the last 10 years professionally.
And the reason that you moved here. Super depressed, super like in a cycle of self-pity. And I had just gotten 2 cats, and they truly helped lead me out of that, because you just can't be in that energy when you have to take care of someone else. And I realized the huge aha moment was like, oh my God, animals have been here my whole life, and I've never been alone. Even when I felt alone, like God is always here. I've had these animals, I've had these beautiful people in my life. So they really bring the light to me. Like I see them as like my guardian angels in a way. And they're just like these really beautiful light-filled creatures that help reflect my own light back to me. And then I feel like that you can then pass that on and pass that forward to other people too. Totally. Okay, that's cool. If you want to, like, you accidentally just gave a motivational speech to go get a dog or something, you know what I mean? It's
go
funny
with dogs,
because it really does make me think. So all these years, I actually, for a number of years, I would have, I lived with people because I always like relied on living with people whenever I had my like substance use problems and so on. Like I'd be like, well, I will behave less weird if you're around, you know? And so like, it was like, I love people as well, but it helped me like not do disordered eating or not to do extracurriculars as much or things like that, because I'm like, well, you're here and I don't want to disappoint you, you know? But they usually had animals, and I always really enjoyed that. But I was always like, I'm too irresponsible to have an animal. And then I traveled a lot because the previous career path that I had the opportunity to travel a lot. I made a good living at that time, which the irony of switching into coaching, LOL. Anyway, I haven't traveled in forever. Anyway, but love what I do. So it's just cool because I've come to realize I'm at a stage of life where like, that would actually be a responsibility that I could take on. And in a way that, yet again, in reflection, that would have been such a wonderful thing for me to do, to have to be responsible to an animal. And I always just said, oh, well, I'm like, I can't do it because I travel. I can't do it because blah, blah. I can't. And yet, like, what did I miss out on from being unwilling to be selfless enough to care for something as simple as an animal?
Yeah.
You know, like that's just anyway, I appreciate you like making me think through that lens. And then it does make me think of a story, and then I want to get on to like your being in New York and move on. But, whenever my grandmother passed away, a little over 3 years ago, the people that I was living with had a dog, and the dog like slept under my bed every night. Like,
Aww.
Oh my gosh, no, it was yet again, it was like a cheat code. 'Cause I'm like, you have an animal, so I can just enjoy the perks and then leave whenever I want.
Yeah.
Like it was like an unfair, anyway, shout out Boz. He's the best. And Ty and Shay, you're the best. But anyway, the day that she passed, I went back to my hometown and dealt with stuff, and then I came home and stayed home, and then I went back for another week and stayed back in my hometown and dealt with stuff. But that night that I got home, like he was always very perceptive in general and always very loving and so on. But this one night, I do remember like I returned home from what has been the worst loss I've ever experienced. And he was laying on my bed, like with his head on my pillow where I lay. And as a animal person, you're like, I have a million stories like this. And it was just so profound for me because I mean, I was not good. Right.
Yeah.
And, like the person that had the largest hand in raising me is gone. I'm not cool with this. And, so I like just cuddled up around him, like with my head on my pillow. And then like, he stayed there the whole night. Like he always slept under the bed, you know, and he stayed with me it was just, yet again, there's no way that he wasn't very aware that something was really wrong and was going to do whatever it took to try to make it okay. So like I said, I'm sure you have so many stories like that, but that stuff matters.
It does.
I'm telling it because I haven't forgot it years later, and I'll never forget it.
Yeah. They're just operate from such a beautiful frequency of love.
Yeah.
And they're here to remind, I think they're here to remind us of that like there is so much love within you. You're worthy of love. You are love. You have so much love to give. And like, I love stories like that. Like it's hard not to cry because it's just like, it's so pure and precious. And that's what they are, is pure beings. And I think it helps you see yourself that way too, because the world wants to tell us otherwise, that we're tainted or gross or disgusting or there's something wrong with you. But no, the truth is like, you chip away all that like nonsense and crap, you're just love at your core. And animals like reflect that back to you.
I had no idea we were going to go here.
I didn't know either. I was like,
no, I love this. This is so, it's cool. It's not something I think about or have conversation about frequently. So I like have a lot of gratitude for you. There's another girl I mentor that within the past week got a dog, and it's been such a journey because she's like 2 days in, she was like, I've made a mistake. And then like a weekend, she's like, this is changing my life for so much better, you know? Yeah. And it's been so fun to watch. Okay. All right. We can wrap on that. I do want to now go to, so 18 years old, you decide to walk away from, you have an accident and you decide you're going to go down a different path. Was because all I know of you is you're a high level grappler, right?
Yeah.
So like, were you doing that then? Did that not come into the picture till you moved to New York? Like when did that come in?
I never did jiu-jitsu, but I grew up prior to choosing and putting all my energy onto horses. I had done a lot of martial arts.
Okay.
Like I had done competitions. I did a lot of Jeet Kune Do, karate, kempo, competed with like sword routines and like different forms, but definitely in a lot of like Muay Thai. So I had done striking. I had done martial arts, was definitely something I grew up doing and I loved it. Was really into it, but then I had to choose between horses and that, and I chose horses. And when I went to NYU and I got like a scholarship to be in the school where you design your own major. So that was kind of my opportunity to get out of California, try something different, live in a city, do something completely alternative to what I had been doing. And yeah, no horses, no country, no like beautiful mountains.
Gosh, what a shock to the system.
No oceans.
Did you have an animal?
I did not. No. And like, that was the other thing too, that the whole time I lived in New York City, I never had an animal. So what you were saying about like all these excuses of like, I'm irresponsible, I'm not ready. I was saying the same thing.
Interesting. Okay.
So yeah, so no animals, just was focusing on being a student and taking advantage of the city. I think I had like an internship every semester. I always worked 2 jobs too. Like I was crazy busy. I filled up my plate as much as I could. Didn't have a social life. Again, there's a theme because I was so busy working, and I loved it. Like, I loved running from class to like a corporate office to the gym that I was working at, like all over town, all over the city, doing a bunch of different things. It was really fun. And I loved what I was studying, and didn't do any martial arts, was doing more like classes because I worked at Equinox. I worked as like a front desk girl. I worked in the shop and got free gym membership, which is why I worked there, because I wanted to take advantage of the amenities and the fanciness of that gym. And
Smart.
Yeah, it was awesome. I loved it. Like, as an 18-year-old, like using Kiehl's products and the eucalyptus towels, it was incredible. I felt so fancy. So yeah, it was awesome. And then at the end of my senior year, I started doing kickboxing again. And I was at a gym that had jiu-jitsu. I saw it, had no interest. I was like, I like striking. I don't want to like get close contact and like touch people and have them on top of me. I thought it was really weird and made me like looked uncomfortable. But they had a women's class, and we're trying to get women to try it. And they asked me if I would do it. And I was like, okay, sure, I'll try it once. And I hated it. It was so uncomfortable. I felt like disgusting. I felt really powerless. But there was something about that discomfort that I knew right then and there that I was going to have to go towards that and keep doing it. So that in and of itself was the motivator, but also the attraction. Like, usually when I feel super scared about something or uncomfortable, that's always the way to go and the direction to go. Because I was really big about making myself uncomfortable and trying to expand as much as possible. And so the jiu-jitsu really was the most obvious experience of that, where I was like, I hate this. I don't want to, like, this is so awkward. I feel so awkward, but I know I have to do this. Like, it's a part of my journey in getting better and expanding. And then I kept going. And then I couldn't train for a year because I got a job at NBC. I was in the Page program. I don't know if you ever saw 30 Rock.
I know what you're talking about.
Kenneth the Page he's a classic example of what a page is.
Okay.
So basically you're at NBC for a year and you do a bunch of different internships within the company. And at that point I had gotten one to work on Saturday Night Live. And so I had a crazy schedule with that, working from like 10 a.m. to 2 a.m. because it's a live show and they write everything, all the jokes, depending on who the guest is, the week of, like days before the actual performance. So that was a super cool experience, but super different from anything I'd ever done before. Didn't have time to train. So I had started jiu-jitsu in 2014, took a year off basically because I was working that whole internship, and then came back to it in 2015 and went full on in, like training before work, during my lunch break, after work, was so into it, loved it, was the highlight of my day, scheduled my whole day around training. And then my coach at the time mentioned, he was like, you should just do this full time. And I didn't even know that was an option. I didn't know people could do it professionally, let alone females, because I had started jiu-jitsu when I was in my early 20s, and most competitors, especially the females, have been doing it since they were like 12, 10, 15, like years and years and years. And so I just didn't even see that as an option for myself. But as soon as he gave me that permission or put that into my mind, I couldn't not do it. So I quit my job and went full in on jiu-jitsu as a blue belt. But at the time, there were still not that many high-level American females doing it. So there was a lot of opportunities for me to get sponsored, and I had a lot of success right away because I was on the mats all the time. Like, I was on the mats like every single class, like probably 4 to 6 hours a day, plus the lifting. I had exposure to high level instruction. I think a lot of people would agree that if you have a great instructor who's teaching you good high level techniques that work, it doesn't matter how long you've been training. Because I know blue belts who've been training for 4 years under John Danaher who are better than a lot of black belts because they're just getting really good information that has been tested, and it works. And so that was the case for me. I got really great jiu-jitsu, had a great professor, instructor, and was able to implement that jiu-jitsu at a high level right away. I got my black belt in like 6.5 years to 7 years, and was just competing internationally.
Wait, say that again. Okay, because I'm just like nerding out on so many things that you're saying that I got caught up before. How many years did it take you to get to black belt?
It took me 6.5.
That's so fast.
Almost 7. It was fast. Like, I had, and the Jiu-Jitsu, the way your belt is awarded to you is subjective. It's like based off of your professor thinks. It's also a marker of success, I think, for a lot of competitors. It's how you do in competition. And I did well. I had I trained with mostly men. And like I said, I was really like almost psychotically disciplined, like never missed a session. And I wouldn't recommend that now because I have a lot of injuries, a lot of issues with my body because of never taking time off, and developed unhealthy relationships to training, competing, all of that stuff.
Yeah.
But I was on the mats. I was a gym rat like all day, every day, and would have like stitches in my face from like getting kicked in the face. My tooth went through my lip a couple times. I tore all my shoulders, my knees, but I would still come in and train. And I got really good, I think, because I just showed up every day and was not scared of getting beat up. I think there was like 2 years in our pro training sessions where I didn't score 1 point. I was just getting mauled and beat up and beat up and beat up. But that in and of itself, I think, was a really important experience because I learned to not, like, that's just training. Like, right. I don't have to win every round. I don't have to win. Like, the ego goes out the door, and you're just focusing on getting better at something and being a student. And even if you're not winning, so to speak, you still are, because you're getting, like, there's so much wisdom in getting beat up. You learn so much about yourself, your jiu-jitsu. You can pick up things from other people. And so I kind of loved that experience, and I loved being on the mat all day. Like, I learned a lot of jiu-jitsu, and I learned a lot about myself, and it was a great experience for me. So that's so much, like, that's, I think, why I was able to get pretty good in a short amount of time, because I just was thrown in and went all in and had great instructors and great training partners as well. And that's all you need is, like, the discipline to just show up every day and then get yourself to a place where you're going to be getting good information, and then it's not hard to get skilled.
Yeah.
So
that's cool. I talk about this all the time, that I just, like, because of my current profession and the fear that I have around whatever, like, I deal with, like, not knowing how I feel about training and all. We've talked about that. We can talk about it more, but I want to keep going on you. But it is so funny considering how much, like, fear whatever. Like, I love watching jujitsu. I even love drilling it.
That's awesome.
And yeah. It's simply the live rolls where I'm like, don't hurt me, please. Yeah. And so, but then again, I have only no-gi practice. I have no-gi practice.
Yeah.
So
I
whereas that's, like, the world that you, like, predominantly live in. And we did talk about the differences. I do want to talk about that. I kind of want to speak to that whole injury process, because what was amazing to me too is, as you and I were talking about that in regards to, like, how that impacts your just ever since you moved here. So how long were you training in New York? And by then you were instructing and competing and doing well in competition, all of that. Like, what was the time span there before you came here? Was that the full 6?
I was there. I was at my school, Unity Jiu-Jitsu, from 2016 to 2022, or 2015 to 2022. So, like, 7 years there.
Okay.
And no, maybe 6 years there, because I was at another school before I moved to Unity. And then I've been here for about 1.5 years.
Okay. And so you moved to Austin for the job.
Yes. So I moved
to train on a team, right?
Yes. I was sick of living in New York. The only reason I stayed in New York City was because of the jiu-jitsu and the team that I was on. Mm-hmm. And then the pandemic just changed the city for the worse. And I just couldn't live there anymore. It was super chaotic, anxiety inducing. And I was just thinking to myself, like, why am I fighting all day on the mats? Then I have to fight people on the street, not like physically, but people would just want to get into altercations all the time, just chaotic. And so I didn't like that, and I didn't feel comfortable. So I decided to leave. And the only other place I considered was here, because of the high level instruction. I wanted to train with the best in the world. And if it wasn't going to be in New York with my old professor, it was going to be here with these guys. And so I moved, and then they only do really no-gi. And I competed a lot in no-gi. I've had a lot of, in the IBJJF circuit, had success in no-gi, but gi was always my preference. And that was something else that kind of scared me. So I was like, okay, I got to go towards that. I got to get good at the no-gi stuff too, since I do have a resistance towards it. And I moved.
At that time, what was your cause for resistance?
I think just because I hadn't spent as much time doing it. And to be honest with you, I'm probably better at no-gi than I am in the gi because I don't care as much. Like I don't have as much expectations or pressure on myself in no-gi. It's like very flowy and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And then in the gi, I'm like, oh my God, I want to win this championship, this title. And I just have more pressure I put on myself for that modality for some reason. But the no-gi has always been a lot more fun, I think, because it just allows for a little bit more freedom and flexibility, and you're not so restricted, because in the gi people can definitely hide behind their grips and stalling and holding, and that's why people tend to hate on it, I think, because of that reason.
Yeah.
But I think it's really beautiful. I think there's a lot of infinite ways to grip and to do different things, and people can really express their style, I think, a bit more in the gi. Because it is like the jiu-jitsu, it is, you learn techniques, but ultimately you have your style and your way of employing and embodying those techniques. So that's why I like the gi. But I moved here and then I got injured about a month and a half in.
Yeah. So you had just moved.
I had just moved.
Whole world has changed.
Yes.
You're still figuring out like literally where you shop for groceries,
Yes.
much less
Yes.
like if you have friends.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then I got really seriously injured, 3 herniations in my neck that pushed on my spinal cord that shut off my whole arm. So it was really bad nerve pain that I just felt like I was being electrocuted for like 2 months straight. I couldn't raise my arm over my head. Like my tricep wouldn't allow me to do this. I couldn't wash my hair. Like it was just a weird situation. And then
were you in a sling? Were you in anything, or it was just pretty much just limp to
I
your
was
side?
pretty much limp to my side, and I didn't have any doctor. Like I didn't know anybody because I just gotten here and I just got off the plane, went straight to training, didn't like get any, didn't switch my insurance, like didn't do any of that stuff. So I got injured and then didn't know really where to go with it. Didn't know how serious it was, because every injury, like I've mentioned, I just keep training.
Yeah.
But this one was so, I couldn't hold my phone in my hand. So I knew it was pretty serious. And I went to go see a bunch of different doctors, get a bunch of opinions. Most of them wanted me to do surgery and infuse my spine, which I was like, fuck, no, sorry.
You're good. You're good.
I'm like, sorry.
That was actually so cute. Okay. Yes.
I was like,
absolutely not.
no way. You're not going to like cut into my neck unless it's like for resuscitation purposes. Like, no way.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to do this like the natural route. And then I got a bunch of different opinions, saw a bunch of different therapists, and they told me you have to take 8 months off of training. And that to me was, I just didn't believe it. I was like, there's no way. Like, I know my body's amazing. It bounces back. It's going to get stronger like immediately, maybe like a month off. I'll give you that. But sure enough, after the nerve pain continued and I still had so much weakness, I thought, okay, well, I have no option. I just have to, give my body time. And that's when I got my cats. That's when I started teaching a lot more. And there was a lot of awesome things that happened to me during that period. But it was definitely really hard not to go into self-pity, really hard not to get depressed, because I didn't know if I'd ever, compete again, let alone train, because my arm just wasn't working. Mm-hmm. And I have so much more empathy and respect for people with serious injuries, chronic pain, people who can't use parts of their body, because I would be sitting there with my friends, like trying to lift a weight up overhead, and I'd be like willing it, sweating, drenched, but couldn't, like a 3-pound weight, like couldn't get it over, over my head. So it was a really interesting experience in terms of how I relate to my body, but also surrender. And because at that point, there's nothing I can do. Like, I'm doing everything that I can, controlling all the things that I can control, but the rest is not up to me. It's up to God. Mm-hmm. And I remember thinking like, okay, this is a huge lesson in surrender. And I have such a hard time with that because I want to control everything. Yeah. I want to I have all these goals that I want to achieve. Mm-hmm. There was a lot of fights with battles with my ego where I had to just remind myself, okay, like if I am not meant to win the Black Belt World Championships this year, next year, or ever, I'm still going to be okay. It's not going to change my life. My life is still going to be really, expansive and great. And I can contribute to this world however God wants me to. And it might not be the way that I thought I should be, but like I should hold space for God's plan because it's much bigger and vast than I can even imagine in my limited human form. So that was a really hard process because I'd have days where I would be like, yeah, I'm surrendering to God. Like, it's not up to me. And then days where I would wake up and be like, no, like, I'm going to get back on track. I'm going to train. I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
And I tried to go back to training in August, but ended up re-injuring myself about a month later. And so I clearly wasn't ready. And that to me, I think was even worse than the first injury because I just couldn't believe that it happened again. And at that point, I had no choice but to be like, it's not up to me anymore. Like, whatever God wants me to do with my life, like, if it's jujitsu, great. If it's not, great. Just show me. I'm open to being directed to whatever path I'm meant to be on. Just, I'm here to be of service, whatever, use my life. And that made it a little bit, I think, easier for me to navigate that. And as of now, it still seems like I'm being shown jujitsu is the way, but I'm always asking, like, if it's not jujitsu, like, show me what it is.
Yeah.
If it's not teaching, because I had such a aversion to teaching. I never wanted to teach. I wanted to just be a student. I didn't
feel that in my soul.
Yeah. Like, I felt like, I was like, why would they come to me when they can come to, like, the head instructor who has a class here? Like, why would you come to my class when you can get it from, like, the guy? And just really shy, just did not want to do it. But thankfully, my old professor forced me and made me do seminars, made me teach classes. And I'm so grateful that he did, because that was how I was able to stay connected to jiu-jitsu while I was injured and couldn't train.
Well, that was going to be why I have a few questions in here, but definitely one is, like, when instructing, you're using your body.
Yes.
So what did you do to get around that? Because if you couldn't even lift your arm up, like, how were you navigating around your injury during that time?
It was really hard. I remember I was covering classes for one of my friends while he was away fighting, and it was fresh off the injury. Like, I was getting really bad nerve pain. And I remember trying to go for, like, just grabbing the collar, and I couldn't even do it. Like, I couldn't even raise my arm up to grab it. Yeah. So I had to change the techniques in the class. I had to change what I showed to make it possible for me to show. And if there was, like, a upper belt that I knew could do the technique, I would sit there and explain it as they did it, which I actually thought was a really cool way of showing jiu-jitsu, because sometimes it's, when you're teaching jiu-jitsu, you're using your body and explaining things and you can show it. But sometimes I think it's even more impactful when you can have two people doing it and you sit there and point things out, because I was able to learn new details myself and then share those details that I think were impactful for other people. And it was, that was actually a really cool thing that I didn't ever foresee or think about as a teacher. Yep. But I was able to really gain a lot from that as well. But it was really hard. Like, I remember one time I was trying to show a technique and I face planted because I went to post my arm, and, like, I was like, oh my God, this is one, embarrassing, and two, my injury, it hurts. Like, oh no, my ego is, like, it's reminding me that I'm injured. Yeah. But everyone is so obviously nice and gracious and just so happy to have, just be in class. I think that's the other cool thing about jiu-jitsu is that people get it when you're in, like, you're using your body. So it's going to get injured. It's going to get things are going to get tweaked. And, I just had to adapt, and it was great for me to force me to work on other things, work on other positions that maybe I wouldn't necessarily care about as much, but I did what I had to do and just adapted. Yeah.
I think that's so cool, because it's like what you also gave those people who were then helping you demo, like, you learn best when you have to teach. And I'm sure, you understand that as well. Like, or at least it expands when you've got to figure out how to tell somebody else how to do a thing. Your ability to implement the thing for yourself typically goes up. So then you, like, down-chained it even further to, like, incorporating them in the instruction, gave them access to, maybe you were still the one speaking, but, like, now they're the one demoing. And so now, like, yet again, their skill goes up, their belief in self goes up. Yeah. Maybe whereas they previously thought, I'll never be, I could never, whatever, here they are helping you do the thing, and they probably really look up to you. And so they're like, maybe I could. That's, like, one of the coolest things is the same thing that your coach that told you could do it full time, and you're like, I didn't even know that was an option. Or that said that you're going to do seminars whether you like it or not, and then you did it and you realized how beneficial it was. Like, all these different coaches that have had impacts on you, even through your injury, you were then having this down chain impact on these other individuals and empowering them through your hard time.
That's really cool that you say that, because I think I've been in those situations too, where I was doing a technique and I was like not even realizing I was doing it well. And then the instructor would be like, hey, everybody stop, watch her do this. She's doing a really good job here, here, and here. And it does empower you. And you're like, oh my God, maybe I'm not an idiot that's like not flubbing this technique. And changed my whole day, changed the way I thought about that technique forever. And hopefully if they felt that, that's awesome. And I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
And there's always opportunities, I think, to empower people, whether or not we're aware of it. And it's nice to recognize when maybe that did happen.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's such a cool, you would not have otherwise, I openly state I am someone who historically has really suffered with ego. Like it is a sneaky little thing that just comes up, and it's, and so humility, I would love to say, has come naturally. And maybe times it has, but often it comes because I needed some humble pie.
Yeah.
And so I just think about how beneficial all of that is, anytime that you have to be humble and have someone else help. And then how it's like, I don't know, these days in my recovery world, I'm like, dude, the seat that has the most humility in the room is like literally like the best seat to be in, so to remember that whenever ego wants to pop its ugly head up and catch you off guard. And anyway, I do want to ask too, because you've made many references to God and to your spirituality. And so I'm curious about, like, I would imagine these experiences have probably like broadened your experience there or your relationship there, but like, was that always present for you? And what maybe has some of this stuff done to that?
That's a great question. I grew up in a home where we would go to church every Sunday, and I would grow up praying, but I didn't really have a personal relationship with God or with Jesus. And it just was something that was shown to me, like, that's what we do. This is how we live. This is how we operate. And so I didn't really think anything of it. But then as I got older and I moved away from home at high school and had some experiences that I think turned me off from connecting with God. Like, I didn't become, I would say, an atheist. I was just more not really nurturing that relationship.
Sure.
Because I didn't feel it was giving me anything. And, I had experiences that made me depressed and sad and traumatized. So I was thinking, like, how could that even happen? Like, whatever, I'm not going to think about this anymore. And then going to New York, I didn't really connect, didn't have, like, there was a lot of opportunities I had to go to different churches. And every time I went to a new church and was introduced to a new community, I had a really weird experience. People would call me out in the middle of a sermon and like put all the attention on me, and I'd be like, what the hell is this? Like, this is so weird. Like, I'm never coming back here. And I just had really bad experiences. But then during the pandemic, I came across a spiritual teacher who really spoke to me and honestly triggered me. And those triggers were really helpful because they allowed me to see the discomfort I was feeling, or the anger, or the me being upset with what was being reflected back to me, allowed me to go deep into what the actual issue was. And I was able to reconnect with my spirituality, form a personal relationship with God and with Jesus, and pray to them directly. And I don't go to a church. I see the value in it, but I just don't feel that's what's right for me. And I pray all day. Like, I'm always in constant communication with Jesus, but I don't feel the need to be at a church every day. I don't feel the need to be reading from the Bible every day, because I have a direct connection and I don't need anyone to guide it. I feel like the times that I was a part of churches, it didn't work for me. Like, I didn't have that direct connection. And I really like what I have right now, which is where I'm speaking directly, and I'm not being forced to do it on a Sunday at 10 a.m. because I'm in the church and everyone else is doing it. So for me, I don't do well when I'm forced to do something. Anytime anyone tries to force me to, like, set me up on a blind date, for example, or like tell me to do something a specific way, I don't respond well.
Nope.
And I have to either figure it out for myself or find my own way. Yeah. And I think that in terms of my spirituality was definitely the case, because I went to a lot of different churches, researched was so interested in religions and researched all the different major religions and really learned a lot about them. And the one fundamental thing I think that changed my life completely was just forming my own relationship.
Yep.
And not having anyone tell me how to do it, when to do it, why to do it, but just reach out on my own volition directly. And that changed my life completely.
Yeah.
Because it's just instant peace. And I've brought that into my life, and I talk a lot about it more because I never used to. I used to be quiet about my own spiritual beliefs and how I operate because I thought it was a really personal and private thing. But I found that the more that I talk about it openly, the more that, I don't know if people respond to it in an interesting way. And at least like it expands our conversation, it expands our dynamic, and whether it's a positive or negative reaction, it usually ends up being for the better that I talk about it.
Yep.
So
yeah, I think I can relate to you. It just in young adulthood, agnosticism was my flavor for a long time. And it has been interesting because I've got this theme. And if anybody's like consistently watches the podcast, one, I love you. Thank you for choosing to be here. You're my people. And two, there's been so much more frequent conversation about it. I mean, the episode that came out this week was with one of my pastors, right? Which is just like funny that I do attend, and I'm like have been on like the usher team for like a year and a half. It's all funny because I was like adamantly against it for so long, right? Anyway, and my upbringing was in a church, and I hated it. I always hated it, like bawling, crying, begging, don't make me go, for a variety of reasons. Hated it. Anyway, but so it is funny because the more conversation I have around it, it's still, I don't know how it's being received. Like I don't know whether or not it's like, could she knock that off? Like, we like her for these reasons, but we really wish she would leave that alone. Or if it's like, we like this. But what I do know, the reason why I lean in anyway is because for me, the act of prayer, for me, the act of gratitude, for me, the seeking God's will instead of my will has so profoundly impacted my quality of life that like it's a disservice to not speak about it. Like if the whole point of me doing this or whatever is to continue to expand wellness like in life and to try to live this like optimized experience here, and to try to help others do the same if they feel like it resonates, then like I feel like I have no choice but to be honest about how big that really is for me and how much it's growing. So it is just interesting. I very much relate in my own way to like, it's weird to talk about it so much.
Yeah.
As someone who 3 years ago, you said the word God and literally I'm like a cat with my back up. Like, stop that. To now like talking about it all the time, but it's too profound. And I love that you do get to like recognize like, hey, this gets to look like what it needs to look like for me to like, because what I think is so cool too is so I choose to plug into a system today that I enjoy being a part of. And I don't feel like I'm being directed. And I literally listened back to the episode yesterday with that pastor, and I'm over here like, blah, 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 shit, blah, blah, blah. Like,
Yeah.
And they like let me greet people as an imperfect person every week, which is super nice, So I enjoy it. But it is so personal relationship, it is so like, I just like that it gets to look different, I guess,
Yeah. And I think everyone has to find what works for them. And I think everything you just hit upon with how it serves you and how you want to serve back by, sharing your experience. I think that's beautiful. Yeah. And everyone.
Well, what I meant to say is just that the light that comes out of you is so obvious to me that you have a spiritual life,
Oh, okay.
Like that's what's so cool is that even, like you choose to do that on your own, right? As opposed to part of a whatever. And yet it's so obvious that it's like thriving within you.
Yeah. For me, it's just expansive. And like I think I've used that word a lot. I don't know if I've like said it 10,000 times or like it just keeps popping into my head. But my heart feels open. It feels like I'm expanded. I'm getting more by living my life in that way.
Yep.
And however your spirituality looks for you, I think is so long as it does expand you and you're not constricted and you're not being coerced or forced, it could look different. And that's fine. As long as you are, moving forward in the way that is authentic and real to you. Yeah. I think that's what's important.
Yeah. Okay. So I do want to talk about just, I think real quickly on this one, but your gi versus no gi perspective today,
right now. So I got injured, and this is something that actually I think will be good to talk about because I think I mentioned to you earlier, anytime I have fear or anxiety, if I speak about it and I kind of put it out there, it helps neutralize what the issue is. And so I got injured in no-gi. And so in coming back last year, doing my, when I had to decide, okay, gun to my head, if I had to choose gi or no gi to ever do one again, I decided gi for sure. Gi is my love. It's my preference. I have all my goals I want to achieve in the gi. And that's what I've been focusing on. Haven't trained much no gi since coming back, just mostly been in the gi, but I really do love no-gi, and I'm slowly making my way back to those classes and more consistent training and getting back in there. There was a lot of resistance on my end because I was injured there. And I thought, okay, there's no way I'm going to go back to that right away because my neck is still really vulnerable. In no-gi, you don't have the grips and the material to hold on to, so the neck becomes a grip. And that's a main control in no-gi. So I thought, okay, I should take that out of the equation. I can do the gi. And it's been great so far. And, as long as you have great training partners that take care of you and know not to attack that part of your body, I think it's fine. And so right now I've only been doing gi, but I'm getting back into no gi. And I think that's really important for me because the whole theme of my life is wherever you feel resistance, go towards that. And I've been resisting the no-gi, but I'm now getting back to it. Yeah. So, and I feel excited to go back to it.
And say that there's like a woman who wants to get into jiu-jitsu for the reason of being told repeatedly that it's a really good skill to have for a self-defense purpose.
Yeah.
Then would you encourage that woman, if that's the pure or maybe not just a woman, but like that's, whatever, a person wants to train jiu-jitsu because they've heard that it's good to do for self-defense, would you encourage them to go gi, no gi? Is there an age thing that's going to impact that? Like, what's your perspective there?
I think wherever they can find training is good. So if it's a school that only does gi, like that's better than nothing. But definitely, I know at Sheepdog, they encourage people in the protector courses to wear anything. Like you can wear jeans and a t-shirt, a sweater, whatever it is, because your self-defense wear is your everyday wear. For me, it would be like workout clothes. So, and which is
that's what I wore.
which is no-gi, which is no-gi stuff. So if it's from a self-defense perspective, I would say probably no-gi is going to be more realistic to what you would be encountering if you are in a self-defense situation. Yeah. But, training is training, and just knowing how to use your body as something that can assist you in a situation like that is enough in itself. Like, I think for me, the biggest thing that jiu-jitsu has brought me is that it helps ground me into my body, because I like to disassociate. And the first line of defense, I think, for anybody, and females in particular, if you disassociate like me, is being in your body. And jiu-jitsu forces you to do that. And when you're in your body, you're aware, you're paying attention, you're able to call upon your body's wisdom. You have your natural instincts that come online. You can't do that when you're in your head and you're, outside of your body, disassociating in some other realm like I used to do. So I think whatever the modality you have access to, whether it's gi or no gi, the training in and of itself will allow you to get into your body, be comfortable being in your body, and then you'll understand how to use your body as a way to keep yourself safe. And that all comes from, you can't do that if you're not inside your body and happy to be there, like using it, treating it as a home.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And you also do your training inside and thank you. Yeah, I think a lot of my people don't necessarily come from this world. And as I continue to get more curious, I feel so blessed to have you as a resource. And I think that's one of the things that's it's kind of wild to me to recognize how high level you are in this world. And that now you're just my friend. Yeah. It's just another Austin thing where I'm like, this is nuts that I get to have access to these people who have really excelled in whatever it is that their craft is. And now I get to call them my friend. It's crazy. So just thank you for nerding the hell out on this for a long time. Yeah. Being willing to share it. So with the injury, coming back from it, it's been over a year now since it happened. I'm curious what your day-to-day training for your jiu-jitsu stuff looks like right now. But then in addition to that, like you talked about, like you were in there 4 to 6 hours a day training. You were, you know what I mean, being a total gym rat. And like, what does that look like for you today? And it has, like, I would imagine that if it's scaled back, has it been hard? Yeah,
that's it's been really interesting because switching from one style of training in New York, it was more 4 to 6, sometimes 8 hours. Sometimes the classes, each session was 2 hours long. It'd be 3 sessions plus whatever lifting. That I would say now is only sustainable for a really small amount of time.
little sprint, yeah.
And you can't, like, it's just not going to work physically and mentally to be able to do that. Some people can do it, and more power to them. I know I cannot. And most people that I speak to that are high level grapplers, I know you are friends with a lot of them, and I know Jimmy is too. It's just not a healthy way of operating. And I think being very intentional and being very specific about what you're trying to achieve from a physical standpoint is probably the best way to go. And instead of doing 8 rounds in one session, being really intentional about the rounds that you are doing. There's a lot more here, specific training, which I think is really helpful because you get to go in with a very specific focus of controlling and then looking for the submissions from those points of control. And that can really help not only save your body in the sense that you're not like beating it into the ground every day, but you get a lot out of your training. And I think you can see that there's people here who haven't been training very long and they're very skilled, very high level because they're getting great instruction, but they're learning how to be intentional with their training. And that's something you can't really teach. And I think a lot of people, when they go into their sessions, and it could be a yoga session, it could be like a weight training session, they just go to get it done, not really in their body, not really thinking about what they're doing, and they're not really maximizing their experience. You would be able to speak more to maximizing their gains, like their physical gains, I think more than anyone. But I think that I've done that before where I go in, I do 10 rounds, but I'm not really focused. Like I'm just trying to just brawl and not really focusing on the specific techniques, and being when there's less rounds to do, which I had a hard time with in the beginning. I was like, wait, what? Only 4 rounds? Like I want to do more. I really had to focus my attention on what do I want to get out of the session, really be there. And my realm of possibilities, I just limited it. And then you level up, and I think in a really powerful way, because you're looking at really small details that are the make or break details that will inform the rest of the jiu-jitsu, the rest of the training, the rest of the practice, the rest of your journey. Yeah. And I really like that because it, again, saves your body, I think, from just beating it into the ground, but it also allows you to level up in really big ways. It's like it seems like small little jumps, but you're actually making huge leaps forward.
Gosh, it's so cool. You're looking at it through this wear and tear from sport specific lens here. I am curious, now that you have tapered back your volume of training, increased your intentionality with the volume that you do you also, no right or wrong answer, I don't even, do you feel like, because so for me, I had to utilize the resource of training over the course of time more and more and more and more and more. And so I started to put a ton of time and energy, and I think this is a highly relatable thing, into my training. And so for me at that time, it looked like CrossFit and then endurance, riding, bike, whatever, just different stuff. But it got to be eating up large chunks of time and energy. And it was the only thing I did. Can I never take a rest day? Can I, and so now having the awareness about the impact that has on your nervous system. One of the interesting things, because I do come from a CrossFit background and I still do train like that, a couple times a week. I have tremendous love for it. It's taught me so much. And, but there's this continuation as the sport level of it, keeps going. The more time that the individuals that are performing at even the highest level have, the more awareness is being gained around the nervous system and how to deal with the situation, being that it's such intense stuff all the time. So it's not grappling, but it's still really, really hard on you. And if you try to go access that 100%, you're only going to have access to that for so long, and then it's going to dip down, and then you're not even going to have access to it again. And then you're just going to be, like, you're not going to be able to make the gains that you desire making. So it's a different sport, but it's the same thing. And there is some like genetic component, like some individuals just truly have the capacity to be able to do things differently. But most people find that they kind of bump up against that, like, I'm not getting anything done that I need to be getting done anymore.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of permanently going. Anyway, it's just been interesting to watch the evolution of the awareness there in that specific sport go. And then the personal experience, and then now, of course, looking at it through the lens of like durability personally in my own training, and like trying to grow muscles and actually like training with the intention of growing them, which is fun and new and different. And knowing that if that's the case, like doing burpees in between your set is not a good idea if that's your intention, and we know that skeletal muscle mass is our best defense against injury and illness today. And so actually having more muscle mass on us is really important. So being able to move through these functional movement patterns. In fact, it's funny, I want to roll with you at some point, and you'll probably be like, what's wrong with your shoulders? Because they can go anywhere. Just because of all of that training, right? It's so funny. Every time I roll with a new person, they're like thinking they're going to hit a submission, and I'm just like still going. And they're like, okay, you should tap.
I'm the opposite. I do not have a lot of range of motion in either shoulder.
Well, and that was purely yet again, just like a beautiful thing that I gained from a training methodology that I wasn't seeking. Like I didn't mean to get like incredible mobility up there. It just happened over the course of time of training that. So a lot of gratitude for it. But looking at it through the lens of like putting on muscle mass, it's been a really cool thing to be like, you do need to rest between your sets. You do need to sit down. And then the other thing, I'm so tangenting off here, but the other thing that's really cool is as I taper back volume of training for higher intentionality with the training I am doing because of the desired result right now, that forces me to not get to train as often. So now I've got to do other stuff in life. So now I get to have a more full life in other areas. And I just think it's cool because it's okay if you're just if you're at the stage where it's gym rat and that's what you need to do to be okay. If sitting with self is like not on the table right now, like that's okay. But then I think it's a cool thing that like as it tapers down, the more it's like, oh, I have all this energy, I got to put it somewhere. I can actually broaden my life somewhere else, whether it's professionally or personally or whatever.
Yeah.
What do you think about all that?
I mean, I definitely, I relate to a lot of that. I think too is what I've realized, especially recovering from an injury, switching teams, getting different feels for different ways that people train, the different methodologies for how they do things, is that you can, like I've been saying, you can get really good doing like one round a day. If you only have time to do one sparring round a day, it's up to you to decide how you use that round. And I say this to my students all the time too. There is value in every exchange. So what, on and off the mats, but if we're going to focus on the mats, if you're rolling with like a first day white belt, it's up to you to make that worth your while. And there's something you can gain from it. Either you have them start in a really good position, really bad position for you, really good position for them. You work on escaping. Have them put you in a choke and like you have to get out of the choke. There's always something that you can work on, no matter who your partner is, no matter what resources you have access to. It's up to you to determine how you use that. And I also think that one of the cool things about this whole experience too is that in my old situation in New York, I wasn't really in charge of I didn't really let myself take charge. I wanted to be led in terms of, okay, you need to be working on this. You're going to do this many rounds every day. And here I've been forced to direct my own training a little bit more and like forced to, in a good way. Like because I really avoided it. I almost like didn't want to, maybe I didn't feel qualified. I don't know if I felt like I was worthy of being able to choose the direction of my journey in a way. It's like, it sounds crazy to say out loud, but
it makes perfect sense to me.
Okay, good.
Yes.
And so it's been really fun for me to be like, okay, this is a gaping hole in my game. I need to get better at passing to my left because I only want to pass to my right, especially when they do this type of defense. Like I'm just avoiding it. So forcing myself to really work on that. forcing myself to get out of these bad positions. 'Cause a lot of the training that we do here is you start in a pin, which is probably, you know, some of the worst places to start, but you learn how to get good at, one, escaping from those pins, and then two, on the inverse of that, controlling, because, you know, it's not going to be a really good pin if the person can get out in 10 seconds. So you learn how to control, and then you find your way to submissions from there. So I really love that. And I really love too that learning that there's not really honor in suffering. I think that's a huge lie in life, and that's a huge lie in the fitness world and in all of these different ways of sport. There's this glorification of pushing yourself like through hell, like putting yourself through hell, overcoming crazy obstacles. Like we love to, you know, who doesn't love an underdog story, but you don't have to, like, that's a choice. You can still get really good and have ease with it and not have so much intensity and pain and issues. Like I felt like I chose that route so many times in New York with just everything, like relationships or routes to the grocery store, the line I would choose in the grocery store. Like it doesn't have to be the hard one. And there's no, like, you're not worse off or better off for choosing the short one. And why make your life harder than it needs to be? Because there's already so many distractions and things trying to get you off your path and make things harder for you and more than they need to be. And I tend to overthink and make life harder already. So there's no sense in trying to just punish yourself like for no reason. You don't have, like, you can go in and have a great training session, and obviously you're going to work hard. We want to push ourselves and get better when there's a physical element to our vocation, but it not at the expense of, you know, your peace of mind and your mental health. Like there's just no reason for you to suffer and do burpees in between sets. Why? Like for what reason? Like you're tough. You don't have to, and also not having to prove it to anyone, not comparing your experience to anyone else too. That's been a huge thing for me, is that I've always identified, and this is like the ego thing, with being like one of the harder workers in the room, because being the only female, I felt like I had to work harder to prove that I belonged. And I no, that's so dumb to say now, because that doesn't make any sense. Like I belonged inherently because I'm there. I want to be a student. That should be enough. Like that gets you in the door. You should be here. You want to learn. And that's what you're here for. You don't need to like stay extra hours, do extra drills, unless like you really want to, but because the love of it, but to be there because you think you're behind. I always thought I was behind and had to catch up. And that's just another lie that I was telling myself and perpetuating. And so I think allowing myself to be the leader of my own journey, the leader of my own like knowledge acquisition, showing up to class, getting as much as I can from every class that I take, every class that I teach, and then being accountable for my own jiu-jitsu game. Like, where are the holes? What am I avoiding? Where is the resistance? I always ask myself that, and that's where I go towards. That's been really helpful. And then just not having to go crazy every single round, because I think my jiu-jitsu is better now in the 3.5 months that I've been back to training than it was when I was doing like those 6, 7, 8 hour days, because I have a much better sense of self. I have a better relationship to myself. I'm operating from more of a place of self-love than self-hate and unworthiness, because that can get you like to certain places, but it's not going to be, you're not going to have a healthy, happy life, I think, that's fulfilling. Whereas like not doing jiu-jitsu, the last year I got cats. Like that made my life a lot more full. I was able to go to Barton Springs and sit in the sun and go swimming almost like 4 times a week. Like I would never do that in New York. One, because it's not there, but two, like I would never allow myself a day to, like you said, like you have the space to be able to enjoy your life and be present. And then I met a lot of really cool people, like cultivated friendships that I never had the space to be able to work with back in New York. So there's a lot of positives to it, and just really understanding that I don't need to suffer to be a good person. I don't need to suffer to be a world champion. Definitely I'm going to work hard. I'm always like, I know for a fact I will always be a hard worker. I don't have to worry about that. And my discipline is always on point. That's not my issue. I have other issues. I'm just trying to enjoy the process as well. You don't have to be a martyr. You don't have to be super poor and suffer. Like you can be like, it's a great thing to be healthy and happy and wealthy. Like everyone deserves that.
Yeah. I love, all I hear with that too is this balancing act of like, you know, I need to do something hard, but I need to be mindful of like, what are the motivations behind the hard, and was it overshooting the mark, right? Like I feel, for example, there was a day, it was just after, so I had a really heightened day, like heightened nervous system, got to work in an event, and I love doing that. And I live at a lot more like even keel these days. And so those things impact me more than they used to when I was constantly at this elevated state. And so the come down was weird. And so the next day I was like, I'm still just going to go do like, I didn't work out. I just like went and did sauna cold plunge, you know? So that was my choice for like something that's going to make me a little bit uncomfortable, but like, it's not that hard, you know? So I'm still going to choose to do something that's a bit of discomfort, and I'm not going to flog myself through levels that are unproductive, you know, like let yourself rest and recover today. And those are even recovery activities, but to like have that relationship with it where it's like, go do something that you're going to be proud of the fact that you did, but not to your own detriment.
Right. Right.
And so finding that like flow.
Yeah. It's so much more loving.
Yeah.
And you know, you're not like, I think with a lot of athletes, a lot of people who have really strong relationships to physical activity, it's really hard. It's a fine line, and it's really hard not to get to that end of the spectrum where you're like just forcing yourself. And we're really strong-willed. Most athletes are like, you'll push yourself until, you know, your body gives up. But the problem is like, that's not really, it doesn't serve you. Like, what's the point? And you're not in it because you want to kill yourself. You're obviously in it for the opposite reason, because you want to, like, there is a little bit of self-love there that needs to be nurtured. And then hopefully that can be the way that you operate. So I don't know. It's been an interesting, like that's jiu-jitsu and all of these physical fun hobbies that I have really helped me to uncover that. Because I would have been probably still in New York killing myself had I not
had those injuries that slowed you down. Yeah,
exactly.
That's we talked about that before we got on air, just like the things that you get the opportunity to learn through that like forced slowdown. I do want to ask you now, what does like a training week look like for you? Like, I'm curious a bit about you know, the amount of work that you're doing. Like, do you do yoga? Are you doing, I know I see you in the gym doing resistance training, so that's a part of your life. Like, what does it look like for you today? And then also nutritionally, what does it look like for you today?
So for training, I say that I have a much healthier relationship to training. I think I do because I'm not doing these crazy sessions multiple times a day. I am on the mats a lot. So I start my day usually every weekday in the 6:30 a.m. Nicholas Maragali's class. Come to it. It's the best ski class I've ever been to.
You sub it when he's gone, don't you?
I do, yeah.
Yeah, so I love how she's just casually not like you're just so humble. It's so funny. Anyway.
His class is incredible. One, because he's amazing, an amazing human being. He's got great energy. He has amazing jiu-jitsu, incredible teacher. I adore his class. I adore him. The people are amazing, great training partners.
He is safe. I really like him. He's really nice.
Yeah. And he's just fun to be around. And he just makes it really enjoyable and keeps the vibe so fun. So great class. I don't miss it. I try to go every single day that he teaches it. And then usually if I'm not teaching the next class after, I will grab a couple people and we'll continue to train. So Nicholas's class is one of those classes where you have like 4 rounds, and they're usually the situationals. And so you get to be really intentional about it. But I've been preparing to go back to competition, so I needed a little bit extra situation, like specific things that I'm working in my game, or let's say like my arm has been really weak, so I want to work specific things on that just to help me get better. So usually I'll do an extra session, whether it's right after that class or later on in the day, and then I do a drilling session with one of my friends who I used to train with back in New York in 2016. And now we just so happen to both live here. So he's known me for a really long time. And it's just like a fun catch up. We like shoot the shit, but also drill. And so I love that. And then I teach the kids at night. So when I'm not on the mats, I'm try to be at the gym 3 or 4 times a week. I do a lot of like neck rehab stuff. a lot of strength training for the muscles that atrophied while I was injured. And then I do a lot of Pilates, because Pilates was what I could do last year when I couldn't like move my arm, but I just got really into the core work, and I found it really hard. I thought it was really mental.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of things that you think, like you're tremoring and like shaking and drenched in sweat. And so that gave me that type of stimulus that I missed when I wasn't able to do jiu-jitsu, where you feel like you can't go anymore, but you push yourself. I really love that. And overcoming your limits. I think that Pilates gave that a lot to me. So I still try to do that maybe like twice a week, not as much as I used to. And I try to be outside every day. If it's sunny, I'm in the sun at least for like an hour every day. That's a huge different way of living than I used to in New York. So I try to be it's very lush here. So in the trees, in the grass, wherever I can go. I love Barton Springs. If I can get over there in between sessions or classes, that's usually where I'm at. But I'm pretty much at the gym most of the day. I'm training in 1 or 2 classes. I like to do the 11 a.m. John Danaher's class too when I can. Maybe like 2 to 3 times a week is my goal. And yeah, so as long as I can be in class, learning, absorbing, but then also have time to direct my own training, that's what I love to do. And right now that seems to be sustainable. I feel like my injuries are getting resolved and I feel strong and healthy. And that's sort of where I'm at right now.
Yeah, I love that.
And just trying to get back to, competition and the high level circuit that I used to be on.
Yeah. Okay. So wait, what are you setting up for right now?
So I just did my first competition in 2 years, a couple weeks ago.
Okay.
And it was really an interesting experience because it almost felt like I had never competed before.
Girl, this is a big deal. 2 years off is a big deal.
For me, I was just so nervous, and this was not a great mental state to be in, about re-injuring myself.
Sure.
And I fought my first, thank God, I spent hours and hours and hours and hours on the mat, because my body went into autopilot and just went boop, 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 and like did thing. I submitted the girl pretty quickly, and I wasn't even in my body like that. And that's how I knew, oh my God, I've been out of competition for so long that I was so nervous. I wanted to throw up. And I've been in high stakes, like black belt finals that didn't cause me that reaction.
Yes, because you were training.
Yes, because I was training, because I was competing all the time. I didn't have a serious injury. And I think because I relapsed my injury a few months ago, that is always in the back of my mind that, oh my God, could this be the thing that keeps me from, that takes me back and out of the scene again.
Yep.
And that hesitation that I've been carrying with me is probably the worst feeling I've felt in jiu-jitsu, because you're just blocking yourself and you're guarding yourself from your full potential. And it just feels like a really gross feeling when you I don't want to say cock block yourself, but maybe that is the right word. I have no idea.
Yeah. Fear is a very real thing.
Or gaslight yourself, essentially. Yeah. So yeah, that to me, it just feels horrendous. So I've been trying to release that, but it's a lot of mental work, and that's taking longer than I'd like, but I'm definitely getting over it. And the world championship is in 2 weeks. And that was my initial plan, was to gear up for that and just focus on that. But honestly, like I said at the beginning, like a world title isn't going to make or break my life. And I have such a better, healthy relationship to myself right now and to competing that I don't want to get in the way of that. I feel like putting the pressure on myself to I'm sure my body would hold up and do fine at Worlds, but I don't think my mental state is the right place to be in, because I'm just so fearful of getting injured. And the truth of the matter is, like my PT even says, I'm not in the clear. And so me competing, to me, it's just too much risk right now to get injured and then get set back again. So I'm going to just take it slow and do smaller local competitions every month for the rest of the summer, and just get back into the flow of competing, because that's a muscle in itself and a skill in itself to get in a better cadence of getting familiarized with competition, and also just trusting my body, because that's been the huge thing for me, is that I want to be able to trust that my body has got me and it's not going to fail me. And it hasn't so far, but I don't want to rush it. Like there's no sense in rushing to get back when the world championship is every year. I could just go again next year. And there's a lot of really great big competitions at the end of this year that I can still hit. So that's I would never, ever, if you asked me 3 years ago, would never give you this answer.
Right.
I'd be like, fuck it. Like, I'm just going to push through. Cause that was always my MO was, and always injured. And most high level competitors we're always like not 100%. And I've pushed myself through crazy situations and achieved a lot of success, won titles through that, but at the expense of just feeling like kind of demoralized and attaching too much to what the title is.
Yeah.
Because it never feels as good as you think it's going to feel. And you get up the next morning and life is exactly the same.
Yep.
Like you're not going to change your life with these titles. And the truth of the matter is, like, I'm training jiu-jitsu because it helps me become a more expensive version of myself and helps me to get to a more real, authentic version of me. And not like, if I win a world title, that's awesome. That's never been my ultimate goal. It's just to be the best version of me that I can be. And jiu-jitsu is the way that I do that right now. It could be something else later on, but I'm not going to get in the way of that journey just to chase some, piece of metal that doesn't, like, it is meaningful, obviously, because I'm working towards that, but it's usually the journey that's more impactful and meaningful to me than the actual title itself. And I know that I'm totally capable, and it's well within my reach. It's just, I don't want to fuck my body up. I don't want to fuck up my mind because it's been such a precarious place to get there. That being said, I could wake up tomorrow and be like, no, I'm so ready, because in an instant it can change. And like, I'm honoring that. Like, I just don't want to, like, I've overcome so much in the last year physically and mentally that it just doesn't make sense for me to force something. And I've talked to a lot of, like, Nicholas helped me a lot. Like, he was actually so wonderful. I bawled in front of him. Like, I just lost it because it's a lot of emotional, just intensity that goes into this. And
absolutely. Well, you've dedicated so much to it. Totally.
And I felt like
you should feel some type of way.
Like, I felt like a baby because I was like, oh my God, am I just scaring myself? Like, is this stupid? Like, should I just face my fears? Like, what's going on? And he's like, don't ever do that. He's like, there's no reason to push yourself to like face your fears. He's like, that in and of itself is like dumb, because he told me I'll never not fight happy and healthy, because to fight happy and healthy, like, you're going to be the best version of yourself. And to, like, we want to do this for the long game, right? Like, you don't want to burn out and have a bad relationship to competing, because that's what I've had in the past. And there was a lot of pressure on me from very early on. I put a lot of pressure on myself, and it just was not fun. And I do it because I like it. Like, no one's forcing me to be at jiu-jitsu class at 5:30 or 6:30 in the morning. No one's forcing me to go to the world championships. I do it because it's a choice. Yeah. And so if I'm choosing it, I should be enjoying it and getting something from it. So that's where I'm at right now.
I love it. Well, and I love that what I hear too, and this is, yet again, this is just my opinion. But like, you get to be here today, and you get to be a human that gets to change your mind. So if, like, this is how you feel today, like you said, it could change whatever. And like, that's cool. Like, you don't have to have all of those answers. You couldn't, even if you wanted to anyway, because you're leaning into, like, you not running the show anyway,
Yeah.
And I'm just grateful to hear that you're at a place with it where you recognize that, like, these are incredible feats that you've been able to accomplish. And realistically, you have more incredible feats ahead of you that you will continue to accomplish. But like, so much of your value is that light that you bring into the room. And like, you brought that light whether you had the medal or not, And so there's just, I'm grateful to know that's one of the things that, like, even with Jimmy, that I'm like, there, all of this craving to, like, be this larger than life, like, it's driven you to such incredible places that I love that about you. And I want you to, like, feed that and flourish. And yet you're worthy right now, like, as you are right this minute, without whatever is to come, go get it. And also, you're wonderful right now. People hear me say that a lot on here, but it's just a good reminder for all of us.
Yeah, it's so true. And I think that, like, even just saying, like, giving myself the ability to say no provided me so much relief. And that was a huge tell for me. Okay, it's probably not aligned for me to, like, force this to go do it. Like, I could do it. I've done it. Yeah. Spent my whole career doing it, but I don't need that to make my life great. Yeah. It already is. Right. And I'm happy to be a student. I'm happy as is. And that's a really nice way of putting it. So thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So we have, let's see here. We have a way of finishing the show, which is very, very simple. Is there anything else that you want to touch on?
I feel like we've done a huge,
yeah. I think the only other thing I can think of to touch on that would be worth it potentially is just that, like, you and I spoke about, like, you getting over this aversion to social media and so on.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
And so I think we've done a great job of just organically baking that in.
Yeah.
But, like, I think it's a very natural thing to feel some aversion to it. And then, like you said, when I feel that, I lean in. You've repeated that throughout. And so, like, your willingness to do a podcast today or anything is true. Like, you know, so I don't know if you wanted to say anything about that.
Yeah, I think I have, like, we've talked about ego a lot. We've talked about humility. I think my issue, and this is something that my spiritual teacher helped me to see, was that I think I have a lot of false humility, which is actually egoic in and of itself, because I'm still feeding my ego by being, like, humble.
Sure.
And it's also important to accept and be aware of what you do bring to the table, and that, like, you know, we attach so much of our self-worth to, you know, certain things, certain titles. For me, my whole life has been like, I want to be the Olympian or junior Olympian in horseback riding, or I want to be the number one black belt female for my weight class in the world. And, like, if I'm not that, I'm not good. Like, I don't deserve to have a vacation or something like that. And so I'm really working on this, like, getting rid of the false humility and just knowing what I bring to the table, and that I have gifts, and that's okay. And it's a great thing to share them and to be aware of them and to celebrate them and also be happy and proud of who you are.
Yes.
But with the social media, I think for me, I just felt like it was always so fake. Like, it felt really curated. I'm talking about jiu-jitsu. Like, I specifically focus on the jiu-jitsu realm.
Yeah.
And, like, humble bragging and just a lot of ways of not it all was super fake.
Yeah.
And even, like, the Bible quotes that people would put on their social media pages, like, it just would make me sick, because I'd be like, you are so not, like, pious, or, like, you cheat on your wife. Like, why are you putting this, like, Bible quote? Because you're not acting like how exactly. So I, like, all of that, to me, I was just like, no, it's nonsense. But I had a lot of sponsors who would force me in our contracts to post. Like, I would post about, you know, accomplishments, or, you know, throw up a photo and, like, some random caption. But I've been trying the last couple of posts that I've made to be more open, and anytime I'm a lot more open and vulnerable, I get a lot of reception. I had a bunch of stories where I talked about my injury, which I had never done before, and I got a lot of really positive feedback. And even if, like, one person responds well and said, hey, this really helped me, like, that's nice.
Yep.
And I am trying to, like, being on a podcast, I never thought I would do. Just because I never, and even like, in all the topics we talked about today, like me talking about my spirituality, talking about God, talking about animals, like, that's something that I don't talk to people about unless you're close to me, because I guess I've always been concerned with what people think, and it could be, like, me being a people pleaser my whole life, or just very aware of managing certain impressions of myself, which I've learned recently is manipulative. Like, I had no idea that I was being manipulative and trying to control how people saw me, rather than just relinquishing all that and just being as is and not doing anything for anyone else but myself. Like, the social media is a way, I guess I see it differently now, for me to be myself. And if that helps people, great. If they hate it, no problem. If they love it, also great. Like, we're just moving along.
Yep. I think one of the powerful things that, and this is interesting, this is probably more, you know, person to person, but you know, early on, Jimmy was just like, it was an experience. He was trying to understand why I was behaving the way that I was behaving. And I was just like, you know, he said, I can only know you to the extent that you allow me to know you. He's asking me to explain things. And I'm like, I don't know if I'm comfortable telling you that, you know, and it's not a you thing. I don't talk to people about this type of stuff. I'm not, you know, and so that was very profound. And then and from there, I needed time still to like sit with that and to feel safe enough in that space to do that thing. But it is just very interesting that the more that you can lean into, like, knowing yourself and showing up as that person, then it is a really cool journey. And I think social media has a really like, it's a two sides of a coin, you know, like it can be beautiful and it can be awful, and just trying to do your best to lean into like the beauty that's within it.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it is just an interesting thing to
Yeah, I think for me, it's always been not so much about what I do on it, but how I engage with it.
Yeah.
So like getting a lot of comparing myself to other people, seeing that they've accomplished so many things, or they're doing this type of workout, they're on Weight for Worlds, I'm not, like just things like that that have been troublesome to me. So I think that's probably where I'm also getting a lot of my negative or just darker viewpoints on it. But it's also, like you said, it can be a very beautiful thing. You can connect with people, and I have seen how people have been able to impact a much greater scale. Like you have no idea who you're impacting, even just by how you smile at someone in the grocery store. So all of that stuff is really positive, and I do feel like it's something that I need to lean into a little bit more and utilize, because I just don't. I think I post like every other month, and that's usually when someone's like, you said you would do this.
Me.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That's funny.
So I'm trying to get better at that, and I know that there are people like you who are their authentic selves online, and I really love that, because I think it's honestly rare to see that more. So it's like it's not the norm.
Yeah, it's weird. I think that's the thing, is it's weird. It's like it has its goods and its bads, and you do the best that you can with it, and you do it imperfectly forever. You know, and I think that's the thing, like with my willingness to show up there, I have to accept the reality that like I'm going to mess it up.
Yeah. And it's like you said to me, like you can change, like you can have a viewpoint on something one day. You're totally allowed to switch it up, and you don't owe anyone anything or any explanation. It's up to you to decide if you want to share those things. And it should just be for yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Here's how we wrap. 3 things you're grateful for today.
Oh my gosh. I'm grateful for this experience and for you, because this has really pushed me out of my comfort zone in a really great way, though. Not in a way where I was like freaked out or nervous, but just it allowed me to surrender to the experience. And what we talked about was really cool. And I think that it was for me, a very positive experience, and helped me understand a lot about what I'm going through, what I've been through. So I thank you for that. I'm grateful that it's sunny outside and that it's beautiful and warm, because I'm definitely going to sit in the sun later today. And I'm grateful for my relationship, like this new relationship I have to myself, and just being able to say out loud, like, I don't think I'm going to do Worlds, I think was a huge thing, because the last couple of days I've been super in my head about forcing myself to do something that I don't know necessarily it's right. And I think talking about it here just now made me realize that I was doing it for other people and not so much for myself. And now I get to take the pressure off and be a student. And that's my favorite thing, and just get better. So those are the 3 things I'm grateful for right now.
Oh, that was those were great.
Okay,
okay, I do mine as well.
Yes.
So my 3 gratitudes today, I'm going to steal one of yours, just because I literally walked out this morning and was like, I don't want to not be out here.
Yeah.
Like I was like, this is the weather, like the temperature, the sunshine, it's all perfect out there. So please go sit in it for me, and I'll do my best to get out there when I can. For you and for me. Okay. I'm also grateful for, we talked about it, but weird, like there's been a lot going on in life over the past week and a half, of just different things, people that I love experiencing hardship, myself personally dealing with fear, anxiety about a certain thing, whatever, you name it. And as I continue to do more, like I pray every day, because I was taught to a few years ago, but like throughout the course of the day, to just lean in there more, and to just give things up, to just open up my hands and so on. Like I'm grateful to have been taught that resource is one that I have access to anytime that I want it. And I feel like in the past, and it's cool because I was taught then too, like regardless of how you feel, you just do the thing. And so the prayer in the morning time daily happens no matter what. So whether it's good, bad, whatever, like it's still just a thing that takes place.
Yeah.
And it's nice because when I feel like I need it more, I just do more of it, but it still never leaves. Like it's still an everyday thing, whether or not, like it's just a non-negotiable for me in the morning time. It doesn't take any length of time. So I'm really grateful for that. It's really helped my life. And then I think my 3rd thing I'm going to be grateful for is just like shout out my group coaching crew, because they are so fun. And we've been doing gratitudes in the group and as a challenge, and it's been such a window into their worlds in a way that I wasn't previously getting, as far as their accountability to like tell me the things that they're grateful for. So anyway, I've been doing this group online thing since January 2023. And it's been a real gift to get to like grow it and grow this community. And it's just been really cool. So
that's
anyway,
so cool.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's
Oh
awesome.
yeah. Oh yeah. Okay. So is there anything that you want to plug, like anything that you offer, obviously like your classes, anything like that?
Oh,
If not, that's okay.
yeah, I think just come by Renzo Gracie Austin if you're interested in training jiu-jitsu. I think jiu-jitsu, I'm personally very biased. I think you are too. It's a really cool way of understanding your body. It's a very different physical stimulus. So you can get really in shape. You can't really emulate that cardio anywhere else, but it's also just a fun way to meet people too. We do, if you have kids, I teach the kids. I do one-on-one training too in jiu-jitsu, but really just, I don't know, find something that makes you uncomfortable and go towards that. That's all I have to say.
Yeah. No, I love it. I love it. Okay. And yeah, from me, you guys hear it at the end every single week, but I do offer the group and on the online one-to-one and group coaching. And then I do coaching here in Austin, Texas. So if you are here local and you would like to actually train with me in person, I do a bit of group fitness and one-to-one training. And that's been the coolest experience. I had Jimmy actually film a session with a client the other day, and I was like, I need to bring him every single time because now they got the coaching from both of us.
Oh, wow. I know, you guys would be a fun, like that would be a cool.
Dude, we come at it from such different angles. Like I'm a biomechanics nerd and a half, and so is he. But he comes from the muscle growth / optimized strength.
Yeah.
And then like his sport background is entirely different. And then mobility and so on, and like rehabbing injury, all that, like it's grown over his journey. And mine comes from this like performance based thing from the CrossFit world, and then from the endurance sport world, and so on. And so and then now like pain-free performance is the key thing for me, and longevity and all of that. So we've had so much fun just coming from like different perspectives and like unpacking why we do what we do, and layering on top of, like he's taken things that he's learned from me and implemented them with himself and his clients. And I've taken things that I've learned from him and implemented them with my clients. And he's just brilliant, And so while he was like videoing it the other day, he was like, it's cool that you take some of what we do. And cause it was like lengthened partials, RDL stuff, like it was, anyway, I wouldn't have ever done that. I would have done the full range of motion always, but because of the intended stimulus, it actually made sense to shorten it because of our intention. And I wouldn't have known that had it not been exposed to Jimmy's knowledge there. And so he was just like, it's cool to see that you went fun. I'm like, yeah, you're smart. I'm going to take your stuff.
That's a compliment.
Totally. So anyway, yeah, it's just been cool. But if you want to reach out for coaching, that is something that I do nutrition. So full-blown meal plans, full-blown customized workout plans, and then mindset coaching online. So that's it. We just hope that you choose to have a beautiful day.
Yeah.